The eastern corridor glowed with the color of danger, a cold, almost violent blue-white that meant death to any non-Vahari. Davin had seen this color before, but only as a controlled light, flowing safely through the palace's conduits. This was raw, uncontained, lethal plasma. He checked his timing. Containment equipment. 11 minutes out. The princess was trapped behind the eastern corridor's sealed door. The walls hummed, vibrating with energy that could obliterate a human in seconds. Yet Davin stepped forward. He had spent 6 weeks in the Vahari Palace, 4 in the ceremonial wing's infrastructure. He knew the corridors, the conduits, the junctions. He knew the difference between controlled plasma and failure mode. And he knew exactly where the secondary isolation point was. Davin didn't run. Running in uncontained Vahari plasma was a death sentence. Instead, he moved deliberately, each step calculated, timing precise. In 3 seconds he reached the junction, 2 meters inside the corridor. The plasma hit him, but it did not burn him. It did something else entirely. His biology, human, incompatible with this energy according to every text, absorbed it. The plasma's frequency resonated with him. Instead of destruction, it became part of him. He activated the secondary isolation point. Plasma intensity dropped by 60% in 4 seconds. Not safe, but survivable. Enough to reach the preparation chamber's sealed door. Inside, Princess Vale stood calm, her eyes observing the corridor and the faint glow now emanating from Davin's skin. He didn't notice it himself. His body radiated the same blue-white as the plasma he had survived. He looked at operational requirements. "We need to go," he said. She followed. 45 seconds of careful navigation brought them out. The senior guard froze, witnessing something unprecedented. Davin glowed. Human. Luminescent. Protected. Somehow, the uncontainable plasma had chosen him as its vessel. The Queen arrived minutes later. Twice Davin had seen her before. Now she stood, precise and commanding, observing him as if she had already calculated the situation, outcomes, and consequences. "The Saviors claim provision," she said. Davin had no idea what that meant. He would understand in 40 minutes when the senior legal advisor explained the Vahari Covenant law in detail. For now, he simply breathed, still feeling the after-effects of the plasma's interaction with his body. The Queen's words began a chain of events that would change everything. The preparation chamber, the corridor, the absorbed plasma, all were recorded, assessed, and analyzed. The human engineer had survived, and in doing so, he had become a living anomaly in the Vahari Empire. Weeks passed. The advisor explained the legal provisions, the implications for Princess Vale, and the rare precedents of his survival. Davin focused not on his fame or the legal interpretations but on understanding what Vale wanted. She was the center of this delicate balance between law, power, and human intervention. "What do you want?" he asked her. "I want to survive," she replied, calm and composed. "And I want decisions made for the right reasons." For 6 months, Davin studied the Empire's infrastructure, the succession protocols, the biological interactions with Vahari energy, and the princess herself. He recorded every corridor assessment, every plasma reading, and every interaction in detailed logs. Vale watched, assessed, and occasionally intervened, showing him a side of leadership rarely visible to outsiders. Davin became more than a contracted engineer. He became an assessor, a witness, and an unexpected participant in the Empire's succession planning. His human resilience and newfound ability to absorb Vahari plasma made him indispensable. The palace undertook the Eastern Corridor upgrade, now with Davin's guidance. Plasma flows were adjusted, containment optimized, and documentation carefully updated. Every week, assessment reports accumulated, showing incremental improvements. Davin's knowledge, diligence, and courage became part of the living history of the Empire. Yet, there was one final decision pending: the wedding, a ritual-binding law, power, and succession. The Queen had declared it to be prepared. Davin's input, and more importantly, Vale's choice, would shape the outcome. For the first time, human judgment, not just Vahari law, would influence the Empire's future. Finally, the day arrived. After 6 months of preparation, assessment, and careful planning, the decision point came. The corridor he had once survived still glowed safely in contained plasma, a symbol of what humans could endure, adapt to, and even master. The luminescent engineer, the composed princess, and the calculating queen stood together, each making assessments, each weighing outcomes. When the decision was made, it was not dictated by covenant law. It was dictated by careful evaluation, courage, and human adaptability. The wedding was a product of assessment, not coercion. The corridor's upgrade completed, the princess's safety ensured, the Vahari Empire witnessed a new chapter where human skill and judgment mattered in ways no law had foreseen. Davin remained thorough, methodical, and ever aware. His journey through the corridor, his absorption of lethal plasma, and his measured decisions had not only saved a life, they had changed an empire. And somewhere beneath the palace, the eastern corridor continued to hum with energy, blue-white and contained, waiting. Waiting for the next assessment. The palace had never been quieter. 6 months of preparation had turned the once bustling ceremonial wings into a place of meticulous observation and calculated movement. Every corridor, every conduit, every humming energy panel was under constant watch. Davin moved through it all like a shadow with purpose. Each step measured, each glance noting details that even the senior engineers sometimes missed. The glow on his skin, once a faint after-effect of the corridor plasma, had stabilized. Scientists and Vahari biologists had been fascinated, documenting every subtle change. They could not explain why a human had absorbed uncontained Vahari plasma without being destroyed. No record existed. No precedent. Davin had become the first living example of human adaptability in the Empire. Princess Vale, meanwhile, continued her preparation for the Empire's succession. She had grown accustomed to Davin's presence, his quiet observations, and the unique perspective he brought. She often walked the corridors alongside him, asking questions not about engineering but about human perception, about the logic behind his decisions, about the subtle choices that determined whether something would survive or fail. Today, she approached him at the Eastern Corridor's observation hub. Her robes moved like liquid silver, reflecting the controlled glow of the contained plasma behind the reinforced glass. The secondary isolation points are functioning at optimal efficiency, Davin said without looking up. She smiled faintly. I want to understand how you know. Not just that they are efficient, but why you trust the readings so completely. He finally looked at her, the faint luminescence on his skin reflecting in her sharp, composed eyes. Experience, he said. And careful observation. The plasma follows predictable patterns when contained. My body, well, it reacts differently. It adapts. I can't explain it completely, but I can predict its behavior around me. Vale leaned closer, her expression serious. And you've spent weeks in these corridors. You've seen the systems fail and recover. You've seen the difference between controlled energy and uncontained plasma. That is knowledge no one else in this palace has. I have data, he said simply. And 6 months of assessment. But yes, there is also instinct. The human mind adapts, princess. Sometimes faster than the most complex algorithm. Vale studied him quietly, then nodded. Then you understand why the Council is watching us closely. Your survival, your reaction to the corridor plasma. It changes everything. Some of them believe it gives you influence over the succession. Davin's brow furrowed slightly. I am not here for politics. You're here because the Empire needed someone who could assess situations humans couldn't normally survive, she said softly. And because you've proven you can. The weight of her words hung between them. He had saved her life once, and now the Empire's fate seemed intertwined with his presence. He looked past her at the corridor, humming quietly, its energy contained and controlled. The glow was steady now, the lethal blue-white reduced to a safe operational color. But he knew it could fail again. That knowledge, the calm awareness of danger, was what the Vahari Empire seemed to need. The council chamber was cold and silent when Davin entered. The Vahari advisors, clad in ceremonial robes, studied him like a rare specimen. The queen sat at the head, her eyes sharp and unwavering. Davin, she said. You have been observed for 6 months. Your reports are thorough, your assessments accurate. But the human presence, the absorption, we require more. He nodded. I understand. The senior legal advisor rose, moving with measured steps. The Covenant law provides the princess with choice, but the Empire requires assurance. The absorption of plasma has never been documented. We need biological verification, and we need it to be complete. Davin felt a familiar tension, the same pressure he had felt in the Eastern Corridor months ago. Only this time, it was not just survival, it was expectation. He would participate willingly. Understanding the plasma, the energy, and his unique biology might not only protect Vale but also provide the Empire with knowledge that could redefine human capability. The palace laboratories were vast, filled with humming machinery and transparent containment tanks. Scientists and energy engineers monitored every conduit and every channel, recording the plasma's behavior as it interacted with Davin's body. Sensors traced the luminescence along his skin, mapped the energy absorption, and documented the frequency resonance. This is unprecedented, a Vahari biologist murmured, adjusting the calibration. A non-Vahari human, and it's compatible with Vahari plasma. Davin flexed his hands carefully, aware of every pulse of energy. He spoke quietly. It's not compatibility, not entirely. My body is adjusting to the frequency, resonating with it. I can't control it fully yet, but I can survive exposure that would destroy anyone else. Vale observed him from across the lab. And you understand why the Council will view this as more than survival. You are proof of human potential. A bridge between species. He met her gaze. I am still just an engineer, princess. I respond to assessment and data, not ambition. She smiled faintly. Perhaps. But the Empire sees more. Days turned into weeks. The biological documentation was exhaustive. Davin submitted reports, detailed logs, and experimental data. Vale reviewed them, learning not only about energy behavior but about human adaptability. They worked closely, sometimes in silence, sometimes in discussion. She challenged him with scenarios, asking what he would do if plasma flow shifted, if containment failed, if the princess's life were at risk. Davin's answers were methodical. Assess, act, protect, he said. Always within parameters, but sometimes beyond expectations. My survival in the corridor was a fluke, part data, part instinct. But it can be repeated under controlled circumstances. Vale nodded. And that is why you have earned the Council's attention. You are a catalyst, Davin. Not just for the corridor, but for the Empire itself. He blinked at her. I did not seek that role. No, she said. But it has found you. One evening, after months of preparation, the Queen summoned him to her private study. The room was dimly lit, the glow of contained plasma visible through reinforced glass. She gestured for him to sit. Davin, she began, you have proven more than your value as an engineer. Your survival, your assessment, your partnership with Princess Vale, it is unprecedented. I have decided to invoke the next stage of the Covenant law, under your guidance, for the Empire's benefit. He frowned. I am not a political advisor, Your Majesty. I am a contracted engineer. You are more than that now, she said. The human mind's adaptability, your resilience, it is something the Empire cannot ignore. You will assist in succession planning, infrastructure decisions, and the integration of human-compatible energy assessment into the Vahari systems. Your observations are no longer optional, they are required. Davin felt the familiar tension, the weight of expectation pressing on him. But there was also clarity. He could act precisely where the Vahari Empire needed him most. I understand, he said finally. Weeks later, the Eastern Corridor upgrade was complete. The plasma flow was optimized, secondary isolation points reinforced, and safety protocols improved. Davin's assessments had become integral to every step. Vale observed him constantly, learning how he balanced data, instinct, and careful judgment. During one inspection, a minor surge occurred, contained, but enough to test the human-engineer interface. Davin moved calmly, the glow on his skin pulsing faintly as the plasma interacted with him. He isolated the surge, rerouted containment, and restored stability within moments. Vale watched, impressed. "You have done more than survive, Davin," she said afterward. "You have mastered it." He shook his head. "I have not mastered it. I respond to it. Control will come later. Observation, understanding, assessment, that is mastery in progress." "And yet," she said, "the Empire will see it as more. You are the living proof of human capability here." The months continued, each day blending technical assessment, political observation, and human interaction. Davin's presence reshaped expectations within the palace. Engineers consulted him on energy distribution, advisors asked for his analysis on succession safety, and Vale relied on his judgment for decisions that were as delicate as they were critical. Finally, the day arrived when the crown ceremony was to be formalized. The Queen summoned them both to the central chamber. Contained plasma glowed safely in the background, a symbol of the Empire's energy control. Davin stood beside Vale, his body calm, his mind focused. "You have been tested," the Queen said, her gaze sweeping the room. "You have assessed, survived, and guided. Today, the Empire recognizes your contributions formally. Your human judgment is now a recognized part of the succession process." Davin nodded, understanding the weight of the moment. Not just survival, not just adaptation, but recognition of human ability in an alien empire. Vale turned to him, her eyes steady. "You have changed the outcome, Davin. Not because of law, not because of ceremony, but because you acted where others could not. That is worth more than any covenant provision." He felt a quiet pride. Not glory, not recognition, but the knowledge that his careful observation, his patience, his calculated courage had made a difference. The chamber's glow reflected in his eyes. The corridor's energy was safe. The princess was secure. The Empire's succession had a new element: human adaptability and judgment. Davin understood, finally, that the corridor had been more than a test of survival, it had been the beginning of something greater. The Empire had recognized what humans could endure, adapt to, and contribute. And in that realization, he found his place, not just as an engineer, but as a catalyst for change. The glow of the Eastern Corridor pulsed faintly, a quiet reminder that energy, life, and assessment were forever intertwined. And somewhere in the palace, the Vahari Empire began to see that humans were not merely visitors, they could shape the future.